The 5 seasons are prepare, plant, grow, harvest. Okay. So think about like a farmer. So you have to prepare the field, right? Prepare the people's hearts. Then you have to plant the seeds of generosity. Then you have to let them grow. You can't plant a seed and then harvest. You got to let them grow. And then you harvest. And then you have to rest because you can't just plant again or they won't grow.
Well, hello, everyone. Welcome back to Distilled. Today, we have our special guest, Craig Fatt from Injoy Stewardship with us again. If you didn't get a chance, go ahead and pop out of this and watch the first episode because this one's going to tack right onto it. But Craig, I've got a question for you today. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Which fictional character would you invite to dinner and why?
It's tricky. I think I would invite probably Gandalf, Lord of the Rings. You know, you could ask him a question or two and you'd be like, that's what I needed. I needed to hear that. You know, I needed that one.
Oh, I love it. That was a great choice. Okay. The last episode that we had you on for, we were talking about why your church needs a funding plan, not just a budget. And today we're going to talk about the 5 seasons of church funding. So what are the 5 seasons of a healthy church funding plan?
Okay. I'm going to lay it out for you. We built this several years ago, kind of like walking through what are the seasons of giving in a church, or what should they be really in a year of church giving. So the 5 seasons are prepare, plant, grow, harvest. Okay. So think about like a farmer. So you have to prepare the field, right? Prepare the people's hearts. Then you have to plant the seeds of generosity. Then you have to let them grow. You can't plant a seed and then harvest. You got to let them grow. And then you harvest, and then you have to rest because you can't just plant again or they won't grow. Right. So those are the 5 seasons of giving. And so we can get into details of, okay, what does preparing look like? What does planting look like? What is growing? What is harvesting? What is resting? What are all those seasons? But in general, a lot of pastors can kind of figure it out. Preparing is planning, right? What's our funding plan? What's our budget? Growing the seeds of generosity are things like, are you doing any personal finance things to help grow generosity in people, right? How are you helping growing that, right? Planting, if we step back one, is telling story, planting those seeds of generosity of stories that happened in your ministry, in your church. Like, how are you planting those seeds of generosity? Harvesting could be a special offering, right? Could be a capital campaign. Could be just your general offering moments every week. Like, how are you utilizing those harvesting moments? Resting connects right back with preparing and stepping into it and planning again, but also thanking your givers. Like, that's a resting season, thanking them for what happened. So those are the 5 seasons. We can get into more detail, but if a church hits every one of those in a year, they're doing the right things.
I'm curious about how you all developed this. And particularly, I'm assuming that you saw an issue. And my gut would be that churches generally just try to grow and harvest.
Yeah.
Or even just harvest, right? And so either you're just not strategic in general about your giving. And so you're just kind of trying to harvest and you're never doing the work to do that. Or, maybe you're like always harvesting and never resting. And so people are like burdened, and you go from, hey, we're going to do this campaign here. And then we're doing this. And then, building campaign. And then and everyone's like, all you ask me to do is give to all these, give sacrificially to all these things. And, so it feels like this came not just of a light bulb moment per se, maybe, but also from experience of seeing churches struggle with these.
Yeah. Well, I think we've all probably been in those rooms or heard those stories either from friends or family or people not even in the church space, where you hear the stories of pastors or churches that are always in harvest mode. And sometimes it's not necessarily the pastor's fault all the time. They do need, and they're trying to do more, right? And so you hear those stories. And then, to your point, Dan, you also have churches who have no idea the potential they have in their congregation because they've never tried to harvest, and what an opportunity it could be for the ministry moving forward. So I think you hit the nail on the head of even just thinking about it, even just having it in your mind as a pastor or church leader or someone in that room. It's like, okay, if we just think about this like this, here are the seasons of giving. Let's make sure that in the year we're gonna touch every single one of these, right? Just it doesn't have to be overwhelming. It's like, just do it one time. Just do it all. Just do everything one time.
Yeah.
Eventually, you want to build on that. Once you do it one year, it's like, well, these ones worked. Let's just add something else. That's how you start building, a plan. right, that
Yeah.
actually works and serves people wherever they are. So you're dead on. I think we've all felt that before.
How can pastors align their church calendar and communication strategy with these giving seasons?
Well, so that's a really good question too. I would say the easiest way to do it, doesn't feel overwhelming, is you're probably naturally in those stages in the different months. Like you do take January, February. You're probably in kind of a planning, vision casting for the year phase. So let's make it easy. Let's do some preparing the soil there, right? When it comes to then, March, you got Easter coming up. It's like, okay, what a good time to plant the seeds of generosity, right? You can almost take the flow of the year and then just think about those different seasons of generosity and put them in you have ministry plans already. You guys already know what you're doing for Easter. Okay. We need to plant seeds of generosity in that, right?
Right.
Skip to near the end of the year if you want to talk about, hey, we need to do something to harvest. We need to do something to give these people that we've grown generosity in an opportunity to step into what our ministry is doing. So we're doing a big fall kickoff. Let's do a special offering then, right? You just add it into what you're already doing, right? Because, any pastor on this or listening to this, I know you already have everything planned out for next year, right? Everything's ready to go. But you do have those plans. You do have those ideas. Add these things in just when you're thinking about it. That's the easiest way to do it. Easiest way.
I feel like that makes it doable for a lot of people who are
Right.
saying, I'm busy. I don't have the time to add this in. Well, if you just sprinkle it throughout.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Like,
Yep. Absolutely. You're exactly right.
And we've been kind of, maybe, at least in my mind, it's kind of like we're just kind of talking general giving, maybe, just normal, regular giving. But there are things like capital giving and legacy giving. And so how do you plan all of those in the funding cycle, or are those all the same, or do they look differently with these seasons?
Yeah, no, it definitely looks different. That's where you start, that's like you have 101 and you have 201 and 301 and 401 classes. That's one of those things where when a pastor and church leader is starting to do a funding plan, starting to grasp and understand, like, okay, here are the seasons of giving. Let's make sure we get all these things lined up. The next level is to take all that you've learned and all that you've done in that kind of week to week regularly scheduled programming, and then take one step, right? And the one step is usually over into what we call like capital giving, right? Capital campaign thinking. So that's when you move from what's our week to week plan to what do we see our church doing in 3 to 5 years, right? And then actually having the wherewithal to say, okay, well then we need to have a funding plan for that. And that can feel overwhelming, right? But that's when you start the process with, okay, we got the seasons of giving, we're working these things. What you end up doing is kind of just knocking those walls down of what God can do, right? And what the vision is. So to answer the question, you start with your regular giving, then you step into capital giving and saying, okay, what's our funding plan there? What are the seasons of giving for that look like? What do we do for that? And making a plan there. And then you step into what we call like planned giving or legacy giving, which is truly probably the most underutilized type of giving in the church currently. The most opportunity with the least amount of churches actually taking steps into is planned giving. There's no
Why do you
question.
think that is?
Well, it can be confusing, right? And it can be hard to talk about. Plain giving is people pass away and they leave money. People don't love talking about that. It's a tough thing to talk about. It's a reality. And people are hearing about this from other sources, from their wealth managers, from their financial planners, from the commercials on TV. I would argue it might be a better place to hear about it. It might be the
right.
church.
Yeah.
Why don't we talk about it? And then so that's one of those things that because it's confusing and because can be a tough conversation and pastors don't know what are we even supposed to do. There's a lack of doing anything. And so that's one of the areas we've really tried to come in and have conversations with churches about, like, hey, here are the things you can do. Here are the steps you can take that serve people, because there's people in your church that want that. So let's provide it,
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. We've said it before, like pastors are afraid to talk about money and finances. And if the church is not talking about it, if your people aren't hearing about it from you, their only option is to learn about it from the world. And they're almost guaranteed not to get a biblical perspective from that. Right. And so it's like, it is intimidating. It's hard to do. But at the end of the day, these people need to be shepherded and discipled in that time just as much as any other area of their life. And we don't want them learning from the world because they're not going to learn the biblical perspective.
Yep. Yep. We say the same thing. Same thing. I've said it hundreds of times to pastors, hundreds of times. So I know it.
We kind of talked about this earlier, but I think, Dan, you had mentioned it. A lot of churches, they really love like grow and harvest, or mostly harvest, and
Yeah.
that kind of means, and even to the point of, we don't talk about that planned giving. So there are probably seasons in this process that pastors want to shy away from, or they just kind of want to skip over. What common gaps do you see when a church skips one of those seasons or doesn't plan intentionally?
Well, I'll tell you the most common ones that get skipped are resting and preparing. People don't like to rest. Forget we're talking about seasons of giving. People don't want to rest in general. So then if we're just talking about that, they definitely don't want to rest. So resting is the one that is most commonly, I wouldn't say actively ignored, but just not even thought about, just stepped over. Practically, if you think about what that means, it means your people get burned out. I mean, that's what happens. People get burned out. People feel used. People feel unappreciated because you have people in your church who, I mean, the Bible is very clear. People have the gift of generosity, just like people have the gift of evangelism. I mean, just to make a comparison here, imagine if you had someone in your ministry that every time they were just incredible at bringing people into church and seeing salvation, the celebration that would take place there, right? And that's, remember what I mentioned, what rest is. A lot of it is about celebrating.
Yeah.
That's what you would do, right? You would celebrate, like, this is amazing, this is amazing, this is amazing, this is amazing. Look what God's doing. Then you have someone with the gift of generosity. And instead of look at what God's doing, we say, I need you for one more thing. Ooh, that's tough, right?
Yeah.
So resting is often missed. Preparing is often missed. I mean, that's why we talk about funding plans and, capital plans. That's kind of the secondary one that churches will start to do it, but not fully get there. And then growing also. People will plant seeds like, look at this amazing story. Let's go. Let's harvest. They don't give that time, right, to create a culture of generosity. So they can all be skipped over, but it doesn't make for a great harvest in the end.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting because I think some of the things you talked about, some of the reasons I think pastors don't want to talk about money is because it feels like they haven't prepared and there's not a rhythm to it. And it just feels like it's always harvest or what, like I'm always just trying to ask. But this actually gives like a way to be intentional and a way to like honor the people as part of it. Like you're being intentional with it. And it's the same if you had a farm, you compared it to that earlier. And if all you did was plant, grow, the soil's going to go bad. The farm's going to become, less effective. But if you're intentional with it, you can have a very effective and efficient farm. So I love that analogy there. Well, Craig, this has been awesome. Love having you on here. Give it to us straight. What's one takeaway or action item that every pastor needs to take from this episode?
Yeah, I would say whenever you're listening to this, that means there's a month next month. Whatever that month is, think about what you're doing just in your ministry. What are you preaching about? Are there any initiatives going on? Whatever those things are, and think about how can I connect this with one of the seasons of giving? Can I prepare it? Can grow generosity in people? Can we include a personal finance class? I don't know. Whatever you have coming up next month, let's say, okay, I'm going to add one of the seasons of generosity in there. It doesn't matter which one. Just pick one and say, let's sprinkle something in there.
That's really good. And it's really easy. That's a simple thing to do. Everyone can do. I love that. And where can people find out more about you and Enjoy?
Yeah, absolutely. Our website's enjoystewardship.com. So you can find us there. If you have any capital campaign needs, annual giving needs, whatever needs you have in the stewardship world, we're here to help. And I think we'll include our 2026 stewardship plan below as well for pastors. Just kind of get started right in this concept of how do we create a funding plan? What are the seasons of generosity? You got to start somewhere. Start there and think about, okay, let's just look at the year and see what we can do. So that's, if you guys have any questions, listen, I'm all ears and I'd be happy to answer. Find me at enjoystewardship.com and let's get started.
Awesome, Craig. Thanks so much. Everyone, check out these resources. Reach out to Craig. All the links are in the show notes, so check those out, and we'll catch you next time.
See ya.